Hello and welcome to the weekly chart review. This is the stocks edition, where pretty much I analyze NASDAQ and everything follows suit. So, how about we dive right into what happened? All right, so from this point up here where the original reversal was extremely close to coming to fruition, there was one more pullback that I was expecting after this drop, and it kind of happened around this zone. I wasn't sure at what point exactly, and I think it happened just a little sooner than expected, but it did. Yeah, it happened around that 50%. I was thinking it's going to come up just a little bit more, but you know, NASDAQ had other plans, so that's fine. What we ended up seeing over the last week is just some significant moves downward. Okay, the hardest one I think to see was on Wednesday, where NASDAQ just plummeted. Like it just, I haven't seen a move like that in quite a while, right? And it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't expect this to happen within one day. Especially near the end of the market session, right? Like that was the last, right after noon. So what was Wednesday? I do believe, yeah, that was when rates were released, right? So yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was a little expected. It's just within 1 hour, it was a pretty volatile move, right? Especially because you can see the wick of the previous candle. Like that was a bit bonkers, right? So if we take it to 30 minutes, you can see that it's just all over the place. And then it finally broke to the lower side. So that would have been very hard to trade in. Okay, especially it zigzags up and down. It's just a mess. Okay. So anyway, because of that, right now we formed two gaps. At the end of that day and after hours, the market kept dropping. So the two orange lines that you see are gaps from Wednesday and Thursday. Oh, excuse me. Always late night, guys. I apologize for that. Wednesday and Thursday, the gaps formed. They haven't closed. What I see normally, what happens is when gaps form that close, they get closed at the same time too. So I drew up two possibilities. I thought it was going to be, you know, either something like this happens or something like this happens, and it just kind of will trickle all the way down. And it ended up being version number 2. Okay. So what that means is this chance for these two gaps and this third gap to close off in one day becomes pretty significant. Okay, especially when near the last hour and a half of trading, you could see a very strong move to the upside. Okay, it was about 143 points for 1 hour that it went up, right? And there's no catalyst, nothing. It was just, I think it was market bottom, and then that's where all the puts got closed out and people are buying the stocks. I do believe that these two lines will close off early next week. If not on Monday, then definitely by Tuesday they'll be closed before dropping even lower. Okay, and the significance for that, let's see how it looks on the Fibonacci. Okay, so we'll draw it from this high right here, that craziness, to the bottom. So yeah, it looks like it'll be around that zone. So we had a peak after hours around there as well. There's really no imbalance that got left, right? I mean, this drop, the imbalance was filled after hours, but the gap hasn't closed yet. So those are the potential possibilities, right? If it breaks past this zone, I have a feeling it'll come up maybe another 80 or 90 pips. Yeah, so around, yeah, between 80 and 90 points. Sorry, I should say points, not pips. Points up from that area, and very likely a rejection will be happening around there. So yeah, that's kind of my target for a reversal. Okay, and back to the 1 hour, I would say that is entirely plausible. All right, from that low, from that high to the low. Imbalance, if we're talking 1 hour, the imbalance on the 1 hour is here, right? Where's that 50% going to be? Around this area, okay? And let's see, potential for it to move down. I mean, that's going to be really nice. Fibonacci, I just deleted it, but here, let's draw it up again. Let's see how it correlates with that entry, right? So kind of in the same zone. It's possible. It's still in the golden zone, so good chance it could come up to that area, right? The entire candle imbalance. But again, like I said, if we looked at that 30 minutes, you have a lot of this junk happening. So it could even be tightened up with that last move before dropping. Okay, so it could even be around there. But I have a feeling that's going to be a deeper pullback than really necessary. 618, maybe just to close these two gaps is as high as I'm thinking it's going to come. This one will close off eventually, not right now. Right, so I do believe, I'll get rid of that too. I do believe this is going to be where we're coming up in the next few days. Okay. All right. So as far as stocks are concerned, when we take a look at the dailies, the ones that have been really resilient to the sharp moves going down, really it's been Apple. Apple hasn't been dropping as hard as any other stocks right now, so they have some resilience. AMC, I mean, guys, just stop trading it. You know, if you want to keep your money, it's best to stay out of that one. AMD, you know, not as resilient. It has been pulling up, but dropping lower than its previous low in July. And as you see, if I drop this back on the daily, what July looked like, right? June 16th, July 1st was right here. So, I mean, technically it's lower now than what it was, and this is following the market pretty well. So, I mean, I'd be looking at taking some buys on stocks. Oh, man, if you want to do short-term plays, maybe in a few weeks. But long-term plays, I'm going to be looking at getting back in the market around January or February. Right now, it's just too early. More inflation is coming out, more interest rate hikes are coming out, and it's going to be painful, right? Consumers aren't going to have the money to spend on any frivolities. Amazon hit a high of 146 before it reversed around here, 146 and change before reversing. So it's looking like it's making its way back down. Yeah, back down to potentially $100. You know, once it reaches that, nice place to grab a couple buys. Berkshire Hathaway is dropping pretty hard too. Let's see. Carnival Cruise Lines. It's getting to its previous bottom, which is around $8.13. Once it hits that, I'm going to be very tempted to buy a bunch of shares. You know, even at COVID lows, it crossed $7.83, and that's really as low as it hit. Now that people are actually cruising, I can't see the value of this stock staying as low as it is. Financials will be something to take into account for them for the long term, but there's lots of people booking cruises. This is not a dying industry by any means. If anything, they're kind of at the forefront of coming up with more energy efficient solutions. But time will tell. Costco dropped a little bit. You can see it was at the golden zone where it's at reversal, but if we draw another fib going from the bottom to the high, we can see that it's hitting the 618, right? So, and earnings just came out, I believe, right? And then it dropped that significant way lower. However, let me just take a look at what the earnings were at on my phone. And where did you go, Costco? There we go. Okay, so news. Let's see. Costco plans to raise its membership price. You bastards. Oh well, I get cash back from them anyway, so it doesn't really matter so much. But let's see. More into Fred on recession worries. Recession. Costco sees higher 4Q revenue, same store sales. Da, da. Yeah, Costco had decent earnings, right? Nothing really out of the ordinary. And yeah, I think the target for Costco's consumers has always been the cheap hot dogs and the chicken, right? It's kind of the loss leader, and everybody kind of knows it at this point. So, potential for it to climb. I mean, look at the last time earnings report was close to coming out. I mean, it spiked up and then the gap closed, right? So we could be seeing the same thing. It might just close this gap and go lower, but there was one that formed up here. I have a feeling that Costco is almost recession proof. Regardless of what's going on, people still go there in droves to shop, and the cheap gas also helps. So, yeah, I mean, judging from where it's sitting right now, this could be a very good chance to jump in on some Costco shares. Potentially going back up to, I wouldn't really say back into its April highs, but definitely around that mid 500s. Okay, Disney, not really interested, but as you see, 618 retracement back down. I still see this dumping hard. What's another one of interest? DocuSign. So I analyzed this far in the past, and it's kind of in the zone of me being very keen on purchasing, but I do believe it's going to hit that 48 mark before it actually is worthwhile, and that's this entire gap that it formed in 2019. Okay, before that, there's really nothing. Like, that is all I can see from inception back in April of 2018. This is the only significant spot that I can see it dropping to. I can't see it going to its IPO lows. I mean, DocuSign has made some significant strides. Like, you can see only one negative earnings report, and how many positives, right? Like, we had a negative one back in June, and I mean, it was pretty significant overall. But I think that earnings will do pretty well for DocuSign, especially when I understand pandemic is over, but when it comes to inflation now, it's going to be a lot of buying and selling as far as housing market is concerned. And what better way to sort yourself out than getting documents officially signed online through them? So that's what I can see in the long term. Once it drops another couple bucks, like it's at 52.39, another $4 down. I mean, to grab the perfect bottom would be ideal, but even now, I would say it's a safe bet to grab some shares. The fall's not done, of course, guys, right? Like, we know NASDAQ is going to be going even lower. So a good example would be, but the thing is, everything has been crazy oversold at this point, right? 2020, where were the lows in 2020? Right here, right? We've already broken through those lows because DocuSign became very popular during that time. Okay, but the thing is, revenue still has been very good and consistent, and yet the price has been tanking. So, this is kind of something to watch for. Financial statements really come into play. My strength is technical analysis. I'll have to consult with my colleague in regards to financial statements. But the last time we chatted about DocuSign, when I came out with that $48 target, he enthusiastically agreed, saying that that would be a very good spot to jump in because that's kind of where the actual valuation should be at. So, yeah, I would say that is my target, and I'm going to leave it at that. Home Depot, it's making double bottoms right here, but again, there's going to be more drops. I'm going to avoid it for now. Nothing really interesting in Honeywell. Netflix, okay. So here's one that was been a little bit surprising. As everything is dumping, Netflix is pretty resilient, and it's hanging on, right? I mean, granted, it still went from 250 to 224, so it did lose, 10% or so of its value. Yeah, about 10%. But not compared to the rest of the stocks, right? Like, there's been some harder drops than this. And yeah, so far it's looking pretty resilient. It did make it made almost triple tops, actually, if we take this horizontal line right there. Almost, right? Like 3 spots, pretty significant. I have a feeling this is going to drop harder. Now that Netflix already announced that it's going to be releasing its cheaper plans, but with ads, who knows how that's going to look like for its future. Everybody seems to think it's going to be a positive. I don't know if, realistically, people that want the streaming services have them by now. Like, they're not changing their minds. It's only bouncing in between them based on what's available, right? And there's, some black market ways to get all your streaming services for one price, but I don't think that's legal. So, there's not encouraging any sort of illegalities here, folks. Just, I want you to be aware that there are scams out there to cause stock prices to drop more than they should based on all that junk. So yeah, Roku is at a good price too. Before, I grabbed it at the 62 mark, and I took it all the way to 87. So that was a nice little climb. But as you see, even on the daily, everything has just been slowly trickling downwards still. Okay, with no real end in sight, and it hit its ultimate support zone, which is at that aqua line. So earnings came out end of July. Next earnings we have is beginning in November, right? I don't know how I feel about Roku. Like, it's still decent price to purchase. I have a feeling it's still going to come back up to those highs, because right now we're like, I think, $0.50 away from COVID lows, right? There's really no significant reason it should stay that low. Maybe it might hover around there, but again, because NASDAQ isn't finished, I have a feeling we will be seeing lower lows. And then, yeah, SPY just moves the same way NASDAQ does. There's really nothing crazy or intuitive about this, right? We're almost at the bottoms that we've seen way back here in June. It's moving at the exact same pace. But yeah, there's really not much else. Tesla, right? So triple top right here, it rejected, and now it's sitting at 275. Hard drop from 3 days ago, 314 to 275. That's dicey. Right? And when it opened right here to where it closed, yeah, it's 10% in 3 days. Pretty rough. But Tesla is kind of notorious for having those moves, right? Happens more often than not. So yeah, I would say, based on what NASDAQ is looking like and those gaps that need to close, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing maybe 1 green day, potentially 2, and then back on its way down the elevator shaft. All right, guys, so that's my stocks in a nutshell. If you want to know any specific ones, I will be doing more financial analysis with one of my colleagues in the near future when he gets settled in. And then that'll be very exciting. Those are going to be our long-term investments. I am looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Until the next video, guys, take care.